So I had a dream one time that was trying to show me a repressed memory that I had. I don't think I have a lot of repressed memories. This is the only one I know of. But how would you know? I mean, if you have repressed memories, you don't know that you have them until you discover them. And this is the only one in my life. So anyway, in real life, when I was 8.5, my foot became very rigid. You know, there's like a tendon that runs into the arch of your foot, and that tendon became really rigid. And nobody knew why. And I remember going to an acupuncturist. I mean, I went to a regular doctor, I think. There's no explanation. I went to an acupuncturist, and she put the needle in the top of the tendon and then another needle in the bottom of the tendon, and she connected the alligator clamps to it and ran an electrical current through that circuit so I could like feel this tingling along the tendon to see if that would make a difference. And it didn't. The tendon was still rigid. The important thing about that, though, was that it was the first time that I had any thoughts about being some sort of healer. I thought that this woman was wise and she was using these kind of alternative techniques and she really understood stuff about the body, but it was more just that she was wise. She was sort of sage-like. And I thought I wanted to be something like that, to be a healer of some kind. And it's just interesting because I turned out to be a massage therapist. So anyway, the stiff tendon was not resolved, and I had this stiff tendon for years and years and years. And then at some point when I was maybe 20, I had a dream about the foot. The dream was simple and short, but just really vivid and like full of emotion. I went into a bathroom stall because my foot hurt, and I peeled off my sock and I looked at my foot and there was like a worm coming out of my foot. That was the dream. And it was just really grotesque and horrifying. And I grabbed hold of this white worm and pulled it out of my foot. Well, some months later, or maybe a year later, when I was 21 or 22, I developed this open sore on my foot. And normal, healthy 21-year-olds don't get open sores on their feet. It's sort of something that happens to people who have diabetes. They get ulcers on their feet because there's no circulation. And I was kind of young and dumb, and I sort of thought, well, it's a sore on my foot. It'll go away. You know, you don't rush off to the doctor for every little thing. But this open sore was persistent. So eventually I had to go to a doctor because suddenly having this open sore on my foot made me feel really controlled. I felt controlled by it. And even though I'd never been a very active or athletic person, this sore on my foot was suddenly in the way, and it made me want to be active. I wanted to take up running or start doing aerobics or something. And this open sore on my foot was the thing that was standing in my way, and it hurt. It just, you know, I could only wear this one pair of shoes. There was just certain shoes I couldn't wear because it just hurt because there's this like raw open sore ulcer on the bottom of my foot. So somehow I ended up at a podiatrist. She saw me several times looking at my foot. She did x-rays and she was really baffled by this. She did not understand why this sore would not heal. She was just frustrated, and she referred me to another podiatrist. And he was this older guy, you know, really old school, and he gave me silver nitrate to put on this open wound, which is just really old school medicine. Silver nitrate is a way to chemically cauterize a wound, and so it burns like hell. And he was telling me to put the silver nitrate on the open wound every day. So I was doing that, and it really, really hurt, and it didn't work. It didn't promote healing or anything. So I went back to him and I told him it didn't work, and he just kind of threw his hands up, and he didn't know. And he told the other podiatrist, I did this to her and it didn't work. And she called me one day and she said, you know what? I want to cut your foot open. So she wanted to put me in the hospital just for a day, outpatient thing, put me to sleep, kind of like a twilight sleep, not all the way to sleep, and just cut my foot open and see what the heck is going on inside there. I had just gotten my first poodle puppy. Her name was Bombay, and she was young and running around, but now I had to do this foot surgery. This was when I lived in Eastern Oregon. So my mom drove from Western Oregon to Eastern Oregon to just stay with me for a few days to help me take care of this crazy puppy while I was sort of laid up and hobbling around. So it was the day of the surgery. The doctor put me to sleep, and the next thing I remember waking up, and the doctor is like way too excited because I'm coming off this anesthesia and she's jumping up and down and blowing sparks out her ass like she's a cheerleader at a fucking football game. And she has this little glass jar and she's shaking it and she said, "Look what I found! Look what I found! It was a toothpick! There was a toothpick inside your foot!" And then it was at that point I remembered, oh yeah, there's a toothpick in my foot. So what happened was, in the summer of 1985, my dad died in a plane crash. And it was in the first couple weeks after that, I remember I was walking on the carpet in our living room and someone had dropped a toothpick and it was like sticking up out of the carpet. And I was walking and just kicked my foot forward and the toothpick went through the big toe and the next one. It just went through right there and it kind of just slid down alongside the tendon, like perfectly perpendicular with the tendon. And there was like a quarter of the toothpick was sticking out and I kind of pulled it as much as I could and it hurt. Like I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I just pulled on the toothpick and then kind of broke the end of it off that I could. And then the rest of it, just continued to slide down into the arch of my foot right alongside that tendon. And I didn't tell my mom because I have this weird thing when I was younger. I felt very guilty every time I got hurt. Like if I fell and skinned my knees or got a splinter, I felt really guilty, like it was my fault. I don't know what that's about. Like my parents gave me this body and I harmed it somehow. Like I wasn't taking care of it well enough and I injured the body that they gave me or something. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking in my mind. But I always felt really guilty anytime I got hurt. So maybe that was part of it. But it was also that my dad just died. And so there was a lot of changes going on in my house and it was really tense and really difficult. And I'm not going to tell my mom about this trivial childhood accident that I had because, kids get hurt all the time. So what? There was a toothpick in my foot. I pulled it out. And I think in my mind, I thought I really did pull the whole thing out. Even though I just pulled a little bit out and broke that part off and the rest was still in there. I just kind of covered it all up in my mind like the issue was resolved and it was all okay. And then I completely forgot this story. I totally forgot the detail. So that even when I had the dream about the worm coming out of my foot, I still didn't remember the toothpick. It wasn't until I was coming out of anesthesia and the doctor was jumping up and down really excited with this glass vial with the toothpick in it that it all came back to me. And I remembered, oh yeah, I kicked my foot through the carpet and a toothpick went in my foot. So it was like the dream was trying to tell me, trying to give me a clue that there was actually something in my foot, a foreign object in my foot. So that was one of the more interesting dream experiences I had. And it was also fun because the doctor told me I said some funny things while I was asleep. She was trying to cut open my foot and I kept kicking my foot at her and I thought that my puppy was licking my toes. And I kept muttering about how my puppy was licking my toes.